Hi. Good morning. At least for me, it's morning. Today I'm talking about something that's maybe a little bit more controversial, and that is trends I've seen on the internet in interior design that are bad. I'm really not coming here to be like mean or talk shit on anyone or anything. I just think that these things I'm going to talk about are really common. Like, I see them all the time and they're just not good. And I think a lot of people realize they're not good, but might not understand exactly why. So I want to give a designer's perspective on what I think these trends are trying to accomplish and give a better, more creative solution for how to achieve that. Okay, so kicking it off, the first thing that I see all the time that I still just can't stand is a painted accent wall. Whether that be just one wall painted a solid color, or these sort of really saturated geometric shapes that I see really often, or let us not forget the painted arch trend, which was awful from the start in my opinion. Basically, I just really think that if all you're doing to a wall is painting it, like there's not some sort of material change, it looks really weird to just have two different paint colors meet without any sort of architectural definition. So if it's just like two drywall gypsum walls and they meet in a corner and they're two different colors, I think it just looks like pretty amateur, pretty unsophisticated, and like it doesn't really make much sense. But that's not to say you shouldn't use more than one paint color when you're designing a space. I do think multiple paint colors can look really cool, even if they're really bright and saturated. But what's really important to think about is the architecture of the space and what you're highlighting. So I don't think it looks good when you paint just some random mural like this, but it does look really good when you highlight architectural features. So if you look for maybe beams or structural columns or a staircase or a fireplace or any sort of interesting architecture that you want to sort of highlight and pull out in the space. So you don't want it to be just like a random line or shape that you drew on a wall, or even a corner of two just plain walls meeting. I think this also goes for painting a ceiling, which is becoming really trendy instead of painting an accent wall. And again, I think if it's just a plain drywall ceiling and a plain drywall wall, you need some sort of architectural detailing, even if it's really minimal. Get a crown molding or something to divide up those surfaces. I think another reason we saw that painted arch trend or those really chaotic geometric murals is because people feel really intimidated by a big white wall, which I totally get. But I think it looks so much better if you're trying to sort of fill a space to get really large scale art. It just looks much more intentional and interesting and like a thoughtfully curated space. So if that's what's motivating you to paint your wall, I would consider finding a big piece of art instead. I think this looks so cool and makes the space feel really like filled out and really well designed. Of course, big art is hard to find. So I would recommend going to a flea market or a thrift store to get affordable art. If you're sort of like a DIY girly, you could even make something yourself. I've seen some really nice homemade art. Or another way to get really big art is to buy like a big graphic print it out really large and frame it. I think that looks so cool. Okay, the next thing on my list is related and similar but different. And that is those like wood slat walls that you see on like every DIY influencer's feed. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It's like really thin wood slats, and I feel like it's usually on a black painted wall. And I really often see people doing this, like going halfway behind a round mirror or halfway behind a TV. And I don't know, I feel like people are going in the right direction with this by like bringing in a change of materiality and like trying to think in like a sort of 3D architectural way, but it's just so overdone and really often done wrong that I've really grown to hate it. And I think the main reason is similar to what I said about paint, that it needs to be working in harmony with the architecture of the space. So the times that I've seen this and thought it kind of works well is maybe like on a kitchen island or around a column or something that's relating to the architecture of a space, not just like a random rectangle on the wall. So if you like this look, I think what would be way better to do is to use a different material that's a little bit more classic and timeless. and make sure you use it with the architecture of a space. So like maybe you could use some cool wood paneling or maybe tile or something like that. Just something a little bit more unique that has a little bit more depth and personality to it. Because I don't know, especially with the black paint, it's not the right vibe. It's close, but it's not it. Okay, next on my list is really disappointing that I even need to say this, but it's your guys' fault because they're everywhere. And that is plastic plants, faux plants, and especially those like plastic vines that were behind everybody's TikToks in 2020. It like blows my mind how popular these are and how it's still stuck around, because these look awful. If you have these, you need to go throw them away. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna like beat around the bush here. And in general, if you like the look of plants, if you want like a tree or something, I don't think it's ever the time or place to have a plastic plant. I know that a lot of people say they like have become more realistic looking and they can kind of pass, but in general I just think it's a weird vibe. I think if you can't take care of a plant, you shouldn't have the look of a plant in your house. And it's weird, I don't know, to buy something that's like plastic and faux that's like bad for the environment instead of growing an actual plant. It just seems weird to me. And I think that there's so many interesting and cool plants out there that all, you know, have different needs and are easier or harder to take care of. And there's a lot of interesting sculptural plants that it's just so much better to do your research, find the right plant for you, and then use that instead of going for like a plastic tree from Amazon, or especially those plastic vines. Please get rid of the plastic vines. If you don't know who Benji Plant is, which it's ridiculous that me with like 2 subscribers would be recommending a huge YouTuber to you, but he knows so much about plants and has so many interesting, cool plants. And I think if you really dive into that world and like do the research and find the right plant for you in your space, it's just gonna be so much cooler than like a fake plant. Also, special mention to synthetic grass. Architects and designers, please stop putting this in your project. It looks awful, okay? None of that. Okay, and the last irritating trend that I want to talk about today is gallery walls around a TV. I don't know why everybody is so obsessed with hiding their TV. I don't know when it became like the biggest sin in the world to have a TV in your living room that you watch. I think there's nothing wrong with just having a TV, mounting it, having a nice piece of furniture under it, styling it, you know, getting a little lamp or a plant, some books. I think that looks really nice. But so many people have it in their mind that they need to like hide their TV, and that this can be achieved by like putting a bunch of art around it. Like, I genuinely feel like I see this everywhere on the internet. I feel like half of the people under the age of 40 chose to do this in their home or their apartment, and it doesn't look good. And I'm not against a gallery wall. I think a well-curated, interesting gallery wall is really amazing. But I think what needs to happen here is the separation of the TV from the gallery wall. Like, I feel like way too often this is done with art that's like too small, cheap looking, like not well curated. Like, every time I look at one of these, I can just see that the person was like, oh, I want to do a gallery wall around my TV, and like really quickly bought a bunch of cheap art that they don't really care about. It doesn't really feel like a curated collection in any way. And also, if it did, I don't know why you would want to put your TV in the middle of it. So if you love a gallery wall, by all means keep it, but make sure it's a nice, well curated collection of art, and not a gallery wall that's sole function is to like hide a TV, because it's not working. I also feel like I need to mention here the frame TV. I think the Samsung frame TV is really nice because it's really clean looking and it hangs flush to the wall, but it doesn't look like a piece of art. So when you put those like really ornate gold frames around it, it gives such a weird vibe. I really don't think this is the solution if you're like horrified of people finding out you have a TV. So I think it's a great TV to buy, but treating it like it's actually art is a little silly in my opinion. I could genuinely go on for like hours talking about this, but I guess I'll save some of these design icks for future videos. So let me know what you think. I'm sorry if you have one of these in your home. I needed to give the disclaimer earlier, but you can do whatever you want in your home. This is just my opinion. But if you have one of these and you might be feeling like it's a little off or a little dated and you want to update it, you know, we're always trying to make our spaces better. So hopefully I gave you some ideas of what you can do to upgrade and enhance your space. And yeah, like I say in every video, if you're interested in interiors and architecture and design in general, make sure you subscribe and follow along, because I'm going to be posting every week some interesting conversations about design. And yeah, thanks for watching. Love you. Bye.